So I was actually looking at some YouTube stats whilst this video that you're watching is rendering, so I'm going to cancel the render to put this voice clip in, but anyway, I was looking at some YouTube stats and apparently 76% of my audience aren't actually subscribed to the channel but still watch the videos, so if you are one of those 76%, then be sure to actually subscribe. It means a lot to my ego, thank you. Splash units aren't the hottest of things right now. Baby Dragon is the most popular choice and boasts a large usage rate to be fair, but after that the splashes go down a tad bit cold. Royal Ghost is the second most used splash and only has an 8 to 9% usage rate right now. So really we don't have a ton of good splash options. It's not just down to personal preference really either, there is a legitimate reason. Now I know a ton of you are watching this and will be seeing a load of cards like Wizard and Witch on ladder, however that isn't indicative of the metagame. The players running Wizard and Witch are usually casuals. They enjoy running a card, they level it up and then they have success with it. And like that's a totally fine thing to do. The stats I'm going to be looking at though are in grand challenges, where you'll be facing constructed meta decks for the majority of your games. This is where those rather poor usage rates come from. Now why is there such a disparity? Well, I believe it comes from Supercell's valuation of having a splash effect. In theory, splash attackers can do infinite damage. If 100 billion skeletons are all on the same tile, and a wizard comes along and one-shots them all, then that's insane value for this troop. However, it never really works like that in a real game. Players will tend to separate their swarms in order to prevent this from happening. Also, troop targeting is very basic in this game. A splash troop will hit the closest unit to them, and then maybe hit others if they're within range. This can sometimes cause a splasher to take more damage than necessary, hence lowering their effective HP after this fight. So really, by now, it's not a new concept that I think splash attackers are weak. The theory of splash is that they can do infinite damage, so they should have nerf stats compared to single target units. And that is relevant because today I'm going to be discussing the state of Executioner and Ice Wizard. Why these two in particular? Well, these were suggestions in the last video by Blossom and Anime Master, which should be on screen now. And I thought, you know, they could probably go in the same video because it's sort of around splash opposed to why both of those cards individually are pretty bad right now. So as I said before, their stats are actually nerfed in comparison to single targeting units. And this is because theoretically they can do like infinite damage, although most of the time will only actually hit one unit anyway. And so the stats nerf actually ends up being pretty bad. As I explained in my video about splash, which is where the clip from the start of this video is actually from, only Baby Dragon is really a strong splash attacker right now. So every other splash attacker sort of feels this nerf a lot more. Executioner is a weird one to sort of explain. He technically hits every 1.2 seconds because his hit speed is 2.4, but he hits twice. However, these two hits must actually be on the same target and sometimes even miss. So with that being said, you know, he's already looking like a pretty bad card. His stats are nerfed, he might not even hit multiple units, and if he does, he might miss those units. He only has 1000 HP, which means he actually dies to rocket, and when you compare this to, you know, single target attackers that are 5 elixir, like the Cannon Cart, this has 1500 HP. The Cannon Cart also does over 100 more DPS than the Executioner, which is pretty insane. So already you can see, you know, the nerf that being a splash attacker actually gets you. And then you gotta counter in, you know, a lot of the time the Executioner will only be hitting one thing anyway, so it's not the most versatile unit. The Executioner's problem is his overall stats. He was only ever really overpowered when he had bugs or if his statistics were close to that of a single targeting unit. And right now, his bugs have been fixed and his stats have been nerfed. I think Executioner can be viable at a push if you're going to pair him with Tornado. As you can see, probably in the gameplays on screen right now, you know, I'm using Executioner and it's working out. But you really have to build around him and run Tornado, which means you're probably going to run a triple spell deck, which isn't the best if you just want to use this one card. Also, with how the Executioner functions, you never really want to just put him in the back. This is a problem because if you run a triple spell deck, you could be stuck with Executioner and 3 spells. Then you might have to like cycle a log or something, and that's not the best with the new spell damage nerf. And it's not as if you can just like cycle a Tornado or something because it does literally 0 damage. Anyway, talking of Tornado, it might be a good time to move on to Ice Wizard. And to do that, here's another clip from an old video when people thought Ice Wizard was the best card in the game. The community is currently in a small uproar about how overpowered Ice Wizard is and how it didn't need a buff, when in fact the Ice Wizard was never run alone. I have yet to see a deck that runs Ice Wizard and not Tornado, which tells me that Tornado is what makes this card appear strong. Alone Ice Wizard really struggles because of his lack of damage, but a Nado means that he can slow a unit's approach whilst the Crown Tower dishes out the damage. This makes it appear OP when in fact Nado is doing all of the work and any splash attacker would suit here. Ice Wizard is just the best fit because it has an effect and is cheaper than most other options. Ice Wizard, in my opinion, was never actually that good. I think he was just sort of like a hype beast. People thought he was better than he actually was, when in actuality I think Tornado was the real strong card there. This holds true like even now because Tornado has better usage rates than Prince and Skeletons at the moment. Ice Wizard was always just a crowd controller that was sort of cheap and a good synergy with Tornado. This made this combination very, very versatile and, you know, it just fit into a lot of decks. And when I say a lot of decks, I mean 96 6% of Ice Wizard decks also ran Tornado, which obviously means that only 4% of Ice Wizard decks just had the Ice Wizard alone. And to me, this speaks volumes that, you know, Ice Wizard was never actually that strong and it was Tornado carrying it. And with Tornado being the more popular of the two even now, I think that still holds true. And if you want to tell me that, like, you know, Tornado isn't actually that strong, then I'm gonna leave in the top corner a link to my Tornado video, and, you know, why not? Here's a clip of it. Arrows is also a free elixir spell. Tornado is way larger and has basically the same interactions as Arrows. It's already a better card without thinking about the pull and what you can do with it. Controlling any units in Clash Royale was unheard of before the release of Nado, and this card specifically targets your opponent's troops. This is insanely powerful, as Clash Royale really controls itself with you just timing when and where to place down your cards. Tornado was an entirely new mechanic, and came across as skillful rather than OP. And I can agree, Tornado is quite a skillful card when compared to a lot of the others. However, it has a cap that most players have reached now. We all understand how it works, we all know the tiles to activate the king, and we all know the optimal timings to pull stuff away. The peak Tornado cap has sort of been reached, and now the strength of the card is undervalued. King Tower activations are the main role for the pulling effect, but even without touching the king it can be super powerful. Think about an RG. Nadoing it doesn't affect the King Tower or bring it to dual tower range, however Nado is still a very good answer to it, along with some DPS of course. It helps deal with the RG support and just makes the RG waddle up to the tower all over again. This card is nutty at countering win conditions, and I would say around 75% of archetypes are unhappy to face a Tornado deck. This is because it can pull their win conditions to the King Tower, or just because Nado and a splash attacker ruins their entire push. You can pretty much activate the King Tower with like any unit you want to, and then drag pretty much any unit into the free tower range, which is more DPS than a mini packer. You also make that troop's path to the tower longer, which benefits you as well, and it's also cheaper than a mini packer, and also can't be countered, so there's just like a million reasons to use Tornado, I guess. Anyway, back onto Ice Wizard. I think it pretty much died down because bridge spam is top meta right now. Bridge spam doesn't really care about that slow effect. The Bandit will just dash onto the Ice Wizard, the Royal Ghost doesn't even become visible until it hits the Ice Wizard, and maybe the Battle Ram is a little bit affected, but mainly, you know, that deck doesn't really care about a slow effect. Electro Wizard, Musketeer, and Electro Dragon are all just better range units at the moment. They all provide range, and two of them provide crowd control better than the Ice Wiz does right now. In my opinion, Ice Wiz was only ever enabled by the decks in the meta, and Tornado countering like 75% of those. But yeah, all in all, I think the problem is still just with Splash. I don't think Splash units should have to rely on Tornado, which then causes, you know, when Tornado is bad, Splash units are inherently bad. But yeah, do let me know what you think of, you know, Ice Wizard and Executioner right now, also of Tornado, because I'm slowly trying to convince you all that Tornado is like the best card in the game ever. Also, do leave me more suggestions for these videos, because of course I acted on 2 comments that I got before, and this video is now a thing. But yeah, overall, I hope you enjoyed, and peace.